Today I just want to solve a little tool storage problem here in my garage. Here at the front of my garage, things are actually a lot tighter than they appear. I've backed the car away right now to make space, but normally I have things arranged so that the nose of the car can tuck right in. I've got some winter tire storage there, and this is our bike rack that goes on the back of the car, and we got this a number of years ago, and the bike rack attaches to the hitch on the back of the car using this bolt. And with the bike rack stored here, I just made this little cluster of bike-oriented stuff. So up here I have some racks for, this is a support for a bike that has a drop bar so that you can hook this onto the bike and then it can still mount onto the bike rack. And I made this little tool holder for a tire gauge, and most importantly, I wanted to have a socket set with the correct size socket for that bolt for the bike rack. I wanted it right here close at hand. I just picked this up at a yard sale so that I had something that I could dedicate to the bike rack, and so I built this to store that here. Now since that time I moved my compressor up here to the garage, and I have this remote control for the compressor which I actually want to have mounted here so that I'm not obstructing the whole outlet, but this wood is in the way. And in addition I've got a tire valve for the air hose, and I have a little remote control that goes with this, and I want a place to hang them. So we're just going to make a little scrap wood project here to rearrange this storage and move it a bit left. I want something about 1.25 inches thick to accommodate this. You know, somewhere between 2 and 3 inches tall and up to 16 inches wide, and that can sort of fit around here. So I dismounted the old tool carrier and I've relocated to my shop. It's like 28 Celsius out in there right now, and it is so nice to be inside an air-conditioned workspace. And I pulled this beautiful piece of walnut out of my scrap pile, and we're going to use that. And yes, it really is scrap because the grain is going vertically, and there's very little. If the grain was going like this, there's lots of things you could do with this board. With the grain going like this, there's not so much. More importantly, it's the right thickness for what I need. Now I only really need like 2.5, but I have as much as 4.5, but that seems to be way overkill. So I'm just going to split the difference and rip it like 3.5, and we'll see how that works. That actually burned a bit, so I'm just going to knock the fence over like 1 millimeter or not even, and I'm just going to take another little bit off to just clean that up. So this is much bigger than this, so it should be easy to lay out what I want, but of course I'm going to, probably add on a few more things. But the first thing I did is I went to the garage and I found where the studs are, so I marked that here. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is going to drill a couple of countersink holes here so I know exactly where I'll be putting mounting screws to attach it to the wall. When you drill a countersink hole and you come out the end, there's always a bit of a blowout. So one trick that I learned is to just go in the back, run it backwards a bit. You just sort of, it gets rid of the blowout on the back so it stays nice and flat against the wall. So with the 2 countersunk holes, I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a hook right about here for hanging this remote control. That's easy enough. And then beside that, we're going to worry about this. So this is just a neat way of hanging a ratchet with a socket already mounted so that it's always ready at hand. And it's really simple. You drill a hole lengthwise, and then you drill another hole crosswise. And you have to remember that the hole has to be big enough for the handle to slip through nicely. And then the top hole, just use a big Forstner bit which is sized to be bigger than the head of the socket. So it needs a fair bit of space. So I think we will do that roughly there. I'll just sort of trace it a bit, and then I'll get rid of the pencil lines later. So first we'll drill the vertical hole, and notice I have it offset towards the front. I want it to be easy to get at, so I don't want it rubbing against the wall. So we'll put that hole I'll just trace this one for a second. That's what I'll do. This is a 5/8 drill bit. You need a pretty fat one to make sure there's lots of room. And this is end grain, so I'm not sure how this is going to work. Okay, that took a while, but I eventually got through the end grain. And now I want to cut this piece, which is a 1 3/8 Forstner. So I will be drilling in this way. Whoa. And as you can see here, I really should have clamped the piece to the drill press table so it wouldn't move. Sort of was catching a bit, so I thought I'd better stop because let's continue on. So there we go. One custom fitted holder for a socket for my bike rack. Now let's get a few more holes in there for some of the other tools. And oh, by the way, the Forstner did catch a little bit there, so there's just a little bit of a nick on the corner, but again, this is not fine furniture, it's a tool rack, so this is fine. So next was the pressure gauge. So I drilled a hole for that, but this time I didn't want it to go all the way through, so the hole stops right about there. But I still drilled a through hole just in case any little debris would build up that you could blast out of there. For the tire refill tool, I drilled a stepped hole. So first a larger Forstner bit, about a 1/4 inch deep, and then a 1/2 inch one that went down a little bit farther. And again, I drilled a through hole all the way through. There we go. And with all this space, I thought I should add a few more things. Like for one thing, it would be nice to have a tape measure just handy in the garage. So I got one of my old tape measures and I found this. This is actually meant for hanging a picture, but what it is a piece of metal that's got an offset. So I'm going to mount that on the front so that it can clip in. We'll look at that once everything's finished. And I'm just going to drill a few more holes for a couple of old screwdrivers and maybe a pair of pliers or something. And we'll skip over that because you don't need to see me drilling more holes. Okay, now we just need a little, and then a little bit of. Next, I'm going to take it outside and hit it with some lacquer. And then afterwards, I'm going to just burnish it with some paper. Just takes it from nice to smooth, which again this is a tool holder. It's kind of silly, but it will help it keep the dust off it. And finally, I want to mount the hook for the tape measure. And to do that, I don't want to get pencil marks all over my nice new bit of finish. So let's just put down a bit of tape measure. I want it roughly there. So that's 1 1/8. So let's go draw some pencil lines, position the piece, and then I can mark where I need to, and then a couple of little Robertson screws. And then does it work? It gets in there. It's a little tight. Might have to bend that up. But here we go. That's what I had in mind. And there we go, one custom little tool holder that suits my needs out of walnut. I think the special fitted area for a single purpose ratchet is the neatest and most interesting part about it. I love custom tool holders. I love being able to go down to the shop, just whip up something out of scrap wood and why don't we make it look nice? So I'm going to take this down to the garage now and get it installed, and we'll see you on the next one. I think it turned out great, and yeah, I replaced these two hooks with some scrap walnut also so it would all match. I've made a big mistake. I mean, I'm using walnut for garage fixtures. Where is this going to end?